Maroon 5, Don't Want to Know, and this is Dee. Time to meet my guests, Brian Jackson from Expedition Wise and Kieran Toner, who last November, both of them, summited a previously unclimbed peak in the Himalayas. Hello to both of you.
Hello, Gavin. Hi, Gavin.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Brian, we've spoken before on 2 or 3 separate occasions. You're always trotting off up high mountains, aren't you?
I try to do one unclimbed peak a year if I can, because it's something that really, really interests me, going to somewhere where nobody's been before. It's very, very exciting. Yeah.
And that's what you've just recently come back from. November, you conquered another unclimbed peak. I mean, how many are there?
The government released about 103 about 10 years ago, and some of those had been climbed illegally, but they're all officially unclimbed, so we have to be very careful checking which ones are properly unclimbed and which ones have been maybe illegally climbed before. But most of those have now been climbed. There's probably only about 15 of those left out of that list, and they're not releasing another list probably for another 7 or 8 years. So
what's the attraction of climbing a peak that nobody else ever has? I guess that might be an obvious question, actually.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, for me it's obvious, but maybe for non-mountaineers not. To just walk where nobody's ever walked in the history of humanity is pretty amazing. There aren't many places left in the world you can do that. It's just phenomenal to know that every footstep you're taking is on virgin territory. Every view you have is a new view that nobody's had before. We were very fortunate when we got to the summit of Karbi that we actually had a view of Everest that probably nobody had ever seen, because nobody had been up to the top of Karbi with that exact view of Everest before, which is pretty stupendous.
So that was the summit you went up in November last year?
Yes, it's called Karbi. We got to name it. I was there in March, April.
Oh, you even got to name it?
Yeah, well, we're trying to do another peak in March, April, just me and a friend, and the weather turned against us, so we never got up it. And while we were there, we went for a recce to look at the peak I wanted to do with the group in November, and there were 2 large peaks to the right and left, very dark black triangle peaks, and ours was this huge white snow dome in the middle, and Karbi is Tibetan for White Peak, and all the peaks that are on the border of Tibet you name in Tibetan, even though it's also in Nepal.
Wow. Okay, so this time you went with Kieran Toner. Yes. And Kieran, while you were there, I spoke to your wife. In fact, your wife spoke to us several times.
I believe so, yeah.
She was on the radio more than I was during November. Why? Why did you do this?
Why? I've always been one for setting goals, personally, and
quite a goal, though.
Yeah, and challenging myself. A big motivation for me, obviously, aside from the personal challenge, is our little boy Ruben was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes a couple of years ago, and it was shortly after that they actually signed up with Brian to come and do this. And I wanted to do something for charity, raise some money, help support the diabetes research, but also to show Ruben that you can set daft goals that people think are insane, and as long as you're willing to put the effort in and the hard work, and you can go out and do them.
So, I mean, this is like nothing you'd ever done before, I'm guessing?
No, it was, I've always spent a lot of time in the mountains and walking and snowboarding and skiing and stuff, but it was a bit of a new challenge for me, and that was part of the appeal, sort of not knowing whether we would get up. Because like Brian said before, there's not many places you can go where no one's been, but also not knowing what looks relatively easy from base camp or high camp. It's only when you actually get up there and onto the glacier you actually work out whether you can actually get to the top or not.
Because there's a big difference between having a skiing holiday in the Alps and climbing a previously unclimbed peak in the Himalayas, isn't there? As you've discovered.
There is, yeah, big difference. It was an awesome experience from day one, whether you're walking through the lower valleys as we sort of climb in the altitude. You go from the green grass and the forests and the riverbeds up into the sort of onto the glacier, then up towards the peaks. The whole experience was just awesome, incredible.
All right, guys, well, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about your experience in just a moment after this song from Kelly Clarkson.
This is my heartbeat song, and I'm gonna pop all night long.
Kelly Clarkson and Heartbeat Song, and this is Dee. Brian Jackson and Kieran Toner are with me, both of whom summited an unclimbed peak in November in the Himalayas. And I'll ask you this question, Kieran, because I know Brian's done this sort of thing before. It's a first for you. But when you're at the top of a mountain, a previously unclimbed peak, you're standing where no human being has ever stood. What on earth goes through your mind?
I just sort of lost for words. I say I'm now trying to describe it. It's just a unique experience. You just sort of, you can't really describe the view. Any photos don't do it justice at all. You know, you're sitting there and you feel like you're on the same level as Everest and all the 8,000 metre peaks anyway, because you're that high. And you can just see for miles and miles and miles, and it kind of makes you realise how small we are. fitness individuals, really, and just taking it in.
I suppose, as you say, a photograph's not going to do it justice. That's just going to look like any photograph of any mountain, perhaps. But knowing that you're somewhere where nobody else has ever been, and it's took a hell of a lot of effort to get there, that's got to be super special.
It has, yeah, and it was a team effort. You know, there's times on the trek and the climb where people have down days, or they're tired, or they're not feeling that they can do it, or motivated enough, and it is a team exercise to get to the top of the mountain. People need the pick-me-up and the support.
How long did it take to get up there?
We summited on day 13.
Okay, so 2 weeks of
trekking.
climbing, so you must have been absolutely exhausted.
We were a few rest days were built into the itinerary, and Brian's obviously very experienced at what he does, so it was quite nicely staged out. You'd push yourself, but you weren't exhausted, and we had a good rest day at high camp before we went for the summit as well. So yeah, it was tough. It wasn't easy by any stretch of the imagination, but most of us were in good shape.
It was probably more technical than we thought it was going to be.
In terms of
Just the actual walking on the glacier to get in, it was all moraine, so it's large, just boulders. So that was a whole day and a half of just walking on boulders with big boots on, and that really hurts your ankles and it saps your energy.
Sounds like most people's idea of hell.
Yeah, some people it would be. There's no doubt about that.
Most people.
Most people, maybe.
Nearly everybody.
Yeah, but as soon as you then look up from your feet,
Right.
which occasionally you got to do when you're trying to take a breath, and you're in a complete circle of mountains. It was phenomenal, and nearly all those there are unclimbed. So only 2 of those in that whole valley are climbed, and all the rest are unclimbed. So you're just walking along thinking, wow, look at that, look at that, look at that. So every time you looked up, it just gave you the motivation to continue. And even the peak itself was more technical than we thought. The glacier, there were 2 glaciers, one icefall and a glacier to go up, and they had huge crevasses in. So we had to use 600 metres of fixed line to get across the crevasses and clip onto to be safe.
I mean, somebody might be listening to this thinking, do you know, I want to do that. I actually want to do it. How would they begin to go about it?
First thing to do was obviously get on our website, expeditionwise.com. We have one in November this year, which is slightly lower than the one we did, but it's in the same valley, the Rolwelling Valley, northeast of Kathmandu. And we run training weekends as well for those people as well. So they don't have to have used crampons, don't have to have done any snow and ice work. As long as they can trek, then we can get them up to the top.
So later on this year, you're going to do another one of these rapidly diminishing in number unclimbed peaks. 2015, you went out to do the same to Nepal, but it wasn't possible because of the earthquake. And while you're here, just talk to us a little bit about what you saw when you went there post the earthquake.
Yes, I mean, we were supposed to go and do a peak called Bedingo, which was at a place called Bedding, which was exactly the epicentre of the second earthquake. So obviously because of the earthquake, we didn't think it was morally correct to actually be trekking on a holiday as such through a region where people were still trying to put their lives together. So even this year when we went down, it's the same valley we went through, and we trekked through Bedding and through Nar, and to the east and west of both those villages there were 2 villages that have now just disappeared. So all they are is rockfall that have come off the mountain. So it's
completely buried.
Yeah, completely buried, just thousands of tons of rock. And the valley itself, a lot of people have left that valley now. Probably 70% of people have left the valley, and that is one of the original valleys of the Sherpas. So it's got one of the oldest Sherpa settlements there in Nar, and it's one of the oldest Buddhist settlements of the Rinpoche Buddhism. So it was quite, I think, quite sad but also uplifting to see how the people have rebuilt their lives and how they're welcoming people back.
It's quite a poor country, isn't it?
It's an incredibly poor country. The people of Nepal are unbelievably resilient. I mean, that's one of the things they've always been, and they're using the local stone that's come off the mountain to rebuild their houses. So rather than trying to find other stone where there's a collapse, they're actually using that. Tourism is slowly coming back again into the region. The Rolwelling Valley isn't a massively visited valley anyway. It was the original valley that they trekked through on 1953 to get to Everest.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
It's quite
There's some history there.
Yeah, it's definitely history. It's also called the Home of the Yeti. It's where the first Yeti photograph was ever taken, back by a long time ago by Tillman, and also Ranulph Fiennes also saw a Yeti there as well and has been on TV talking about that.
Well, I can tell that you're just going to keep doing this and doing this and doing this, Brian. You love it, don't you?
I do love it. It's fantastic, and as long as I can walk, then I'll keep trekking in the mountains.
Just mention your website for us again.
Yes, www.expeditionwise.com.
Okay, and you've got a film show in Wrexham on the 4th of February, going through the story of your recent adventure and expedition with Kieran.
That's correct. We're going to run a film night. It's a free film night, free tea and coffee. There'll be a couple of interviews with people who went up, and then a 30-40 minute film, and we'll show all the kit as well that we took up, so people can have a little Q&A session afterwards. And it's on Saturday night, 4th February at 7 o'clock at the Community Church in Prices Lane, Wrexham.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Lovely to see you as always, Brian, and Kieran. Nice to meet you. Well done on your achievement.
No, thank you very much.
Thank
I'll
you.
just quickly say thank you to everyone who supported me in raising money for JDOF. Massive thank you from myself, Dawn and Ruben.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Brian Jackson from Expedition Wise, and Kieran Toner, his fellow adventurer.